that regardless of how pretty a civil detention center is, or the fact that it includes high-speed internet, doesn't disregard the fact that its purpose is to detain someone and deport them. So my question to you is, what options do individuals who receive a favorable exercise of prosecutorial discretion have, considering the fact that they still continue in this limbo and are unable to adjust their status? Because to me, this means that prosecutorial discretion is just a stalling of someone's inevitable deportation.
Sure. Well, first of all, I work for the executive branch of the government, and I work for ICE, an enforcement agency. We're enforcing the laws that Congress put forth. And so while you might not like the idea of a detention, it's the law. And we are trying to make sure that we comply with that law with the appropriate persons that should be in detention. And so there is a congressional mandate for persons to be detained, a mandatory detention, and that's why we've called for comprehensive immigration reform, so we don't have to potentially look into that law. I mean, this is something we have to do day in and day out, and what we're trying to do is balance these equities and make sure the appropriate persons are in detention, and those that are not placed in detention can be placed on a community release program, an alternative to detention, sometimes electric monitoring. There is this myth that prosecutorial discretion isn't happening, and it's like some formal process, and it is in terms of if you're going through immigration proceedings and you've got a final order of removal, there's an application for a stay. But prosecutorial discretion, and we have a bill for reform and trust, and I know it's hard to believe me, it's happening day in, day out. I see this data. I know that there's very many people that could potentially follow the umbrella of immigration enforcement in this country. And day in and day out, the administration and ICE in particular is making sure that those that warrant immigration enforcement are those going through proceedings. Oftentimes, we do not know some of the equities that come into existence. There might be someone that had a detainer placed, they're coming to ICE for processing, and they're very reluctant to say, hey, I have a child at home that I need to care for, or I have a series of domestic violence in my past, and I might be eligible for relief. They're very reluctant to do that. So what we're trying to do is bring forward with community work the ability for us to get that information so we can exercise discretion, so we understand where to place them, and potentially if they are subject to mandatory detention, if we can hook them up in a community-sponsored release if they have mental health issues, to work in the community to make sure they're cared for if they have mental health issues. If they're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, that they continue hormone therapy if they have that, they're transgender. So your government is trying to work on these things. A lot of that's happening behind the scenes. What my job is to make sure you know about that, and just know that this is, make sure it's a platform and it's an initiative that we want to carry out. In addition, to hear your stories, to talk about these things, and to see what we can do administratively that Congress is supposed to do legislatively.
I don't think that answers my question, though. What happens to the people who are exercised and who do become people who are exercised prosecutorial discretion? Like, what process exists for them in order to be able to adjust their status, or like, what are the next steps after that?
Well, I mean, getting into the particularities, if they're going through proceedings, what's happening with prosecutorial discretion, there's getting an admin closure, meaning that they're being held in a freeze. They are not able to get work authorization. They're able to be here, not go through proceedings. They're staying in this country. But this is not a benefits program. It's not an ultimate form of relief. That has to come from Congress. What it is ICE not is forbearing on its ability to remove the individual. And so that is actually what happens. And so people are again, pushed into the community. But this will only be changed when Congress decides to change it. And ICE will focus those resources no longer on those people that have got an admin closure, prosecutorial discretion, on those that are a threat to public safety. We are making sure we're in the criminal populations, in the jails, and the prisons. We are making sure once those persons are released and they have aggravated felons, they come into our custody. That's where the resources have to be devoted, and that's where we're devoting resources.
Thank you, Andrew.